from e-GEOS, the biggest remote sensing company in Europe, I would say, maybe one of the biggest in the world. They own tons of satellites, but now they are focusing on the downstream, if I understand correctly, how to leverage those imagery into products. Massimo has a master's degree in electrical engineering, remote sensing, and radar systems from University of Roma. He studied in Stanford, a business school, and he began his career in space industry in 1983 at Selenia Spazio, at the role of CTO of Thales Selenia Space. In 2013, he was appointed Chief Technology Officer and member of the Executive Committee at Telespazio. In 2016, he has been appointed CEO of e-GEOS. e-GEOS is a new company that assumed ownership of Cosmos SkyMed satellites. That was the beginning, and it's really exciting to have you, Massimo, here. Please welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thanks a lot, Ofer. And of course, I'm really pleased to be here, also to bring the contribution that someone that could appear a little bit old space guy, how to deal with the new phase of space activities. And I think that we have a number of challenges because geospatial information really is fast changing. It's fast changing due to the new space assets. We had just before me an example of what the planet is doing, but planet is just one of those examples of new constellation coming up. But it's also quite relevant what we can do when the data is on Earth. And I always say to my people at the Space Hub in Matera Space Center that our job starts when the data is on Earth. So really the geospatial paradigms are fast changing. Data is just part of this game. As we see more and more the convergence of IT and data analytics is very important for the Earth observation in general, for geoinformation business. And for sure we still have today, but we will see in the coming years a flow of info-driven market and how the product, the added value services that we have and that are not new, like rapid mapping, very important. I saw Luke's introduction this morning, but how the continuous flow of information will change those kind of traditional added value services to a true information product and information product services. So really the geospatial it is starting to be really inherent part of Internet of Things. And this is just a change, not only technology-wise, but it's change also in the business model. And I just here, I had a contribution a couple of weeks ago in Hyderabad at the Geospatial World Forum, where we start to debate how the geospatial business is entering the fourth industrial revolution. So we know that we have many satellites in orbit today, but in the coming years we will have a number of new systems and number of constellations. And I think, of course, it's really important to understand what will be the temporal resolution, so how those mega constellations will give temporal resolution and revisit time, which is much shorter than we have today. But we have also the very relevant evolution of the systems like Cosmos SkyMed. Offer, you remember? With full respect on new constellation, Cosmos SkyMed, it's the unique radar constellation, 2 tones rather, I'm sorry to say, but you know, if you want to have submetric resolution, which is of some interest for some verticals, just an example, DNI, defense intelligence, sometimes they are a little bit interested to have submetric resolution. Unfortunately to say, power dimension is still a paradigm that we cannot violate. So we will have, I will talk a little bit in a moment, but it's a fact that we have in the coming years really a huge amount of additional data, and it's a fact that the space data will be just one component. We have a number of information coming from other sensors, including our mobile devices. And this is really the ingredients of the evolution of the business model. So Earth observation business model is changing. It's changing the traditional flow down or architecture, space segment, ground segment, downstream. And so we have the actors that are going to play different roles. And of course, as I said before, IT, information technologies, is really contaminating all of that. And this is just, I found quite interesting also discussing about new ventures and how to see the new ideas in this business. It's just a correlation of two pictures. One is the number of users registered in open and free data access like Landsat and Copernicus. And on the bottom, you have the profile of the VC investment in the space. So it's the space industry. So there is a, not strange, but there is a correlation. As soon as we have the increase in the number of users, we have also quite similar increase in the private investment in the space segment, in the space technologies. So integration, big data, and have the satellite images captured by optical, by radar, and in future hyperspectral sensors. It's just part of the game, and really, this is affecting all the vertical domains. Here I just make an example of where we go with our solutions. Of course, DNI, defense and intelligence for legacy, it's very important. Maritime surveillance, I had just a very nice and wonderful presentation from Hami to understand how, let's say, the maritime domain awareness is relevant for all of us in our daily life, much more than what we think. And then other vertical like agriculture and food production. It's unbelievable how the geospatial business will contribute to have more sustainable and productive agriculture. Risk and asset management. We know that we're going to have some climate change issues. We'll have more violent events like flood. And it's important not only to understand after a few hours what happened, but also as we heard also this morning from Luke, from UNOSA, how to trace the recovery and how to trace the economic impact in the weeks after the event and sometimes in the months and years. Land and infrastructure management and of course climate change, forestry, we had also some examples. So really, it's kind of big data promise. The number of people that are talking about big data and data analytics is much more than the people that knows exactly what they are talking about. But, you know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be honest, and that's my straight opinion. Predictive analytics and prescriptive analysis, it's really important. We had an example before. It's not just to know what happened today, but also to predict what is going to be happening. And really, we are just at the start of this, just the start of this evolution and this revolution. And so we need to ask ourselves from industry, from industrial players, regardless new space, old space, big groups, startups, how we're going to face on that. And a fact that we have a number of consolidation in the market, as well as a number of new companies, innovative companies raising up. So it's important to understand from our perspective how we're going to face all of that. So what we do, we scan the earth, very simple. And of course, we scan the earth starting from the radar asset and combining with all the optical asset. And we went through from the data to the IP product, information product, and big data analysis. Offer, you mentioned just a few words. Cosmos Skymed is going to have the second generation launch very early. I mean, we have the first satellite of the second generation to be launched by the end of 18, the second by the end of 19, and that will give a legacy of a state-of-art radar submetric resolution constellation until 2030. So it's we just had this year the 10th anniversary of the launch of the first satellite. But the federation of the asset is a fundamental feature for all application platforms and services that we usually do. So this is just an example now. Again, it's going to be normal. It's just a report that we provide to our customers abroad, worldwide. This is a report of a parking lot, report about crude oil tanks. I mean, we have many examples of that. Many examples combine optical, combine radar, combining AIS signal, and so on. And you know, rather a certain characteristic, because of course it's, I don't want to say easy, but it's more easy to start to digest 1,000 optical images and have trained the algorithms. But the level of information that you can extract from a so-called genetic stacks, so we have a huge archive of images taken with the same geometry, the same place. So the capability, just an example, to understand if you have a very slow landslides, a few millimeters here, it's a unique feature. And the fact that this information layer is important for all data analytics company is well proved by the increase in the radar data image sales that we score in the last 2 years. So we have a huge archive after 10 years of flight of those images, and this is really important for a number of prospects, a number of services that we are going to address from institution, government, as well as for commercial purposes. I mean, emergency response. We lead the Copernicus EMS, the Copernicus services. So we federate a number of production centers all over Europe. We deliver after a few hours of the event the first maps. And it's a fact that big data and social data are going to refine the damage assessment and the impact of the event. Agriculture, I already mentioned before, it's really one of the segments that is going to be really transformed by all of that. And we have workflow for all the vertical platforms. I will not go through that, but this is just to give the example of all the vertical that we address to the market, and just to recall that. So this is the final slide. Again, it's a message that I brought a couple of weeks ago at Yarabad at the Geospatial World Forum. We know that we have the convergence of a number of additional technologies, location-based analytics, integration with indoor and outdoor spatial analytics, Internet of Things, data-driven digital business, and more, we will have digital twins. So we will have how the geospatial business is going to address digital modeling. And I'm sure that the digital natives will embrace how to use all of that to generate new services and new application. So really the key words that I want to leave is the relevance of the convergence of different technologies. We're going to have a full digital ecosystem where geospatial business will be part of that, and a partnership. I really think that a partnership through and across the value chain will be one of the key elements, and putting together enterprises, big and small, new or old, it's really very important to catch the impressive growth of this market that everyone tells us, and to make that happen in reality. Thank you.